There are few things more joyful than a healthy newborn baby, and few things more tragic than the death of a child, especially when that death could have been prevented. Infants are especially vulnerable, so parents and caregivers need to be aware of how they can prevent tragedies from occurring. The purpose of this video is to show you how children are at risk and explain what you can do to prevent child fatalities. And there's plenty of support available to help parents to avoid the tragic loss of a child. The Georgia Child Fatality Review process is state-mandated and coordinated by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. At the state level, the Child Fatality Review Panel oversees the process of child death review. Each of Georgia's 159 counties has its own Child Fatality Review Committee, or CFR. The CFRs meet and review each child fatality within the county and report their findings. The Child Fatality Review Panel, the Department of Public Health and the Department of Family and Children Services provides information, training, and other resources to assist in ensuring the well-being and safety of children under 18. There are multiple reasons for child fatalities, but in this video we're going to concentrate on the #1 cause of death of infants who are otherwise healthy.
The #1 category for us for preventable deaths of infants are the sleep-related deaths that occur within the state of Georgia, and right now that's happening at an alarming rate. There isn't a day in the state of Georgia that there isn't a child in the morgue, but particularly the infants are coming in at a rate of about 3 to 4 a week, and we want to do something to get those numbers down. When an infant death is categorized as sleep-related, it means that all other factors excluded. There were no injuries to the child. There were no obvious causes of death during the autopsy, and the toxicology comes back negative, and this was an otherwise healthy child who was not expected to die.
The infant mortality rate in Georgia continues to be higher than the national average, and even higher still for African American males. Sleep-related factors continue to be the leading cause of infant deaths in Georgia, and here's the most alarming fact of all. Although there are often cases where the exact cause of death cannot be determined, it's known for certain that the majority of sleep-related infant deaths are preventable. We'll show you things you should do and the things you should not do in order to prevent the death of your child or any child in your care. Please watch carefully, because this information could make the difference between the life or death of a child.
It's important to realize that each year in the United States, 4,000 babies die suddenly and unexpectedly. Half of those are due to SIDS, but a quarter of those, or almost 1,000 babies, talking about 3 babies a day, are dying in their crib because of unhealthy sleeping habits. Babies being put in the wrong position, babies being put in the crib with pillows, putting the pillow under the baby to be used as a mattress instead of a mattress, or using blankets. These are killers.
The most vulnerable children are infants up to 4 months old, but although the number of fatalities drops from age 5 months upwards, all infants are potentially at risk. And the terrible impact of a child fatality cannot be overemphasized.
When Mia was born, she was perfectly healthy. She was perfectly normal little girl, passed all of her tests and everything. The only thing that really she had any kind of issues with was colic, which is, I think, pretty much standard for just about any baby. She was happy. She was a very happy little girl. She constantly smiled, she constantly laughed. There was a phone call that came through, and the call woke me up. And she said, "There's something wrong with Mia." I watched them wheel my little girl out of the back of the ambulance, and they had a breathing bag on her, and they were breathing for her. I remember the doctor came in not long after we got there, and Doc was like, "Guys, like it's not good." And he came back in and told me she was gone. I'm not going to get to watch her grow up. I'm not going to get to see her play soccer. I'm not going to get to be there when she has her first kiss. It hit me almost immediately that that was gone.
To reduce the risk of a fatality, you need to create a safe sleep environment for your baby and minimize the risk of sudden unexplained infant death syndrome, or SUIDs, as well as other causes of death. The crib should not contain toys, stuffed animals, pillows, crib bumpers, or loose bedding. The baby should sleep on a firm mattress in a safety-approved crib, and the mattress should be covered by a fitted sheet. Your baby should always sleep on his or her back, including nap times. This is the most effective way to protect a sleeping baby from SUIDs and other sleep-related causes of death. Babies sleeping on their backs are less likely to choke if they vomit while they're asleep. Dress your baby in something comfortable, such as a one-piece sleeper. Keep the room at a temperature that would be comfortable for an adult. Your baby can share your room, but should never share your bed.
There is clear evidence showing that babies sleeping in the beds with their parents is an increased risk.
Infants should never sleep in an adult bed, on a couch, or on a chair, whether alone or with someone else. This is absolutely imperative. It's the only way to ensure that a baby doesn't suffocate from being placed in an unsafe sleep environment.
One of the first things that we do when we arrive at a scene where a child has died, and it appears, all things being equal, that this could be in an unfortunate sleep-related death due to the child being in an unsafe sleep environment, we are going to talk with the caregiver. It's very important to talk with the person that found the child. In many instances, this is going to be the same person that placed the child to sleep. It's a very delicate situation because you're dealing with a parent or a caregiver who has just suffered the loss of a child. And in these particular cases where we're not talking about a homicide, we're talking about a death that, although it is viewed as accidental, it could have been prevented. We may ask the parent, how did they find the child? If they laid the child on their back, but they found them on their face, was their face down in the pillow or down in the comforter, or was it turned to the side? Were there stuffed animals in the bed? In some cases, the child may have gotten wedged. The average person does not see a crib as being very threatening. When you see a crib with the pretty bumpers and the decorative items, but here we know that to be deadly. We think that we're creating a safe or soft and comfortable environment are very deadly.
It's extremely important that pediatricians discuss the sleep environment of their patient. Up until the last 20 years, we've slept babies on their stomachs with cribs loaded with dolls and blankets and everything else. But the statistics and the studies have shown that that's quite dangerous, and we've got to try and change that.
In some instances, you have parents or caregivers who feel like they can bond better with the child, or it's because that's what my mother did or my grandmother did. And my response to that is, there were times where individuals didn't ride with seatbelts on, and some of us were lucky and we survived. But now that we have better information, we should do better.
I mean, the numbers are there. I mean, you're 40 times higher incidence of dying if you sleep with your baby than if you put your baby right next to you, but in its own little isolette or bassinet or crib.
Nursing mothers feel that they bond better with their child. And what we're encouraging is, we encourage nursing, it's healthy. We encourage that bonding time, but when it's over, the child needs to be placed in their own separate sleep environment, which is going to be safe for them. You're going to decrease the chances of mortality for your infant.
Babies should be alone on their back and in their own crib.
There is no easy way for me to convince a parent of a newborn child not to sleep with the child, not to place a child in an unsafe sleep environment. The only way I know to appeal to those parents is to tell them, I do not want to see your baby in the morgue. There's not a day that goes by that there isn't a child in our morgue. More importantly, there isn't a week that goes by that we don't have babies in our morgue who have died of completely preventable deaths. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. The only way for me to convince them is to tell them the stories of the babies that come into the morgue. There's no soft way of putting that other than I can guarantee you increase the chances of your child dying by suffocation or asphyxia if you do these things that we're telling you not to do.
I had a patient here 2 days ago who admitted during our clinic visit that she had been sleeping with her child until her next door neighbor had a 4-month-old who always slept in bed with them, and they woke up in the morning and one of the parents had rolled over at night and the baby's dead. Us telling them didn't do anything until they actually saw this in real life happen.
There's so many deaths, infant fatalities, that could have been prevented had parents been more aware of what they were doing.
Our duty and our responsibility is not only to that child who's lost their life, but other children who are living. So through that child's death, we can prevent it from happening again.
I think we have to find different places to start talking about this. Groups, church groups, school groups, and not just at the level of the pediatrician and the nurse. It's got to come to the family beforehand.
Over 100 preventable deaths of infants in the state of Georgia is far too many. We have to make a change, and this is easy. Information and knowledge is power.
The key to infant safety is for parents and caregivers to educate themselves on the dangers and to be aware of what they can do to avoid the risk of a preventable tragedy. So please, take advantage of all the resources available to you and ensure that your baby remains healthy and safe. For more information about the risk of sleep-related causes of death, please contact the Department of Family and Children Services, the Department of Public Health, or the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.